Hi! It's Wednesday, November 20, what is it? I guess it is the 28th, 2012. This is Day 9 Daily, number 527, where we learn to be a better gamer, and we wear our bright yellow Day 9 TV t-shirts. Yay! Today I had the wonderful treat of casting the first group of the Iron Squid tournament, where it was Liquid Hero, TSL Symbol, Quantix Golden, and Fanatics Alive, all battling against one another. Yeah. So there's more of those broadcasts coming up. You can check them out over at the day9.tv website. However, I've been casting for almost the whole day, getting up not too early, just around like 8 or something, making sure I was ready and scrubbed my face. Would be thrilled if you got the chance to check out those VODs. But I was a little tired afterwards, and I set my alarm for 6:49 p.m. That's right. Woke up 1 minute before we traditionally go live with the daily, and here I am. Whoa, getting ready to talk a little bit about the PvP matchup, Phoenix versus Phoenix. Because there's not as much content, this will be a proportionally shorter daily, which thrills me, as honestly, I've been talking so much. Ugh, gross. Maybe we should arrange something where one day, everyone in the chat tries to explain the StarCraft concept to me. The reverse Day 9 daily. My hair's a little flatter because of the pillow, but that's okay. There's other stuff going on, there's other announcements, but let us be focused and simply step into the content. Ooh! Oh, yeah. Oh, that's so awesome. Alright, so let's go ahead and put the chat in slow mode. Good. Yeah. Nice. So, in Protoss vs. Protoss, there is the ever-popular Phoenix opening. There's a variety of maps where you can execute it, but I'm going to go ahead. Actually, I will close the replay that I have loaded up. I want to take the opportunity to look at some maps in the map pool, and we want to think about what makes Phoenixes work on them in Protoss vs. Protoss and what doesn't. And as a result, we can then start to explore the idea of what would happen if both players want Phoenixes, which will be the actual replay topic of today's daily. But let me go into StarCraft. How do you look at maps nowadays? 1v1 map preferences. Can you look at maps like that? Oh well. You know what? I'm actually going to open up Google. This is going to be great. Let's look at some images. So the question is, what sort of maps work well for Phoenixes? What sort of maps don't work well for Phoenixes? The short and simple truth is that if you can defend really easily against a number of early game attacks, it's probably a pretty darn good map to go Phoenix on. So you have to then list all of those out. Things like see full-size image. You can, on maps like Entombed Valley, this is actually one of the best Phoenix-based maps. We'll go ahead and think about why that is. It's largely because on Entombed Valley, if you look at your base, let's think about all the early attacks. Well, there's 4 gates. Okay, we have a ramp for that. There's Immortal-based pushes. Well, Robo pushes, we have a ramp for that, so that's no problem. And the only other real category of attack is Blink. And in fact, Blink is the most basic thing to consider when going Phoenix. Can we defend against Blink? Where are ways to blink up into our main base? Well, there's here, against this bottom ridge. That's pretty easy to defend. That's not that much space. And technically a blink does work up over here, but he has to like really commit to it. It's very, very easy to defend ourselves on that kind of map. So people tend to like this map. So we can then start evaluating other maps in this regard. What would be another map to consider? Let's go ahead and look at Cloud Kingdom, a map that's generally considered not so great as we are scaling in our difficulty. And wow, I want everyone to go Google Cloud Kingdom right now, right away, and just be amazed at the even map split. Or I should say the even image split between Cloud Kingdom images and then Kingdom Hearts images. So let's look at Cloud Kingdom. I've cut off some of the map down here, but no big deal. We can easily look at this main base. We can see that this is a lot harder to manage. We want our forces peeled over to this side, Why? So we can defend pushes up here. So this is where our forces will generally be. And then we have this huge ridge. Actually, I can even zoom in. When we have this huge ridge along this side, this is what makes it difficult. If he blinks up here, we have to move all our slow units this way, and then it'll blink back down. Phoenixes will not be able to be used for defense. Phoenixes are primarily used to be able to check out what he's doing, pick off probes in the back of his line, come over here, pick off more probes on this side. So, an interesting question would be, how would you make Phoenix work on a map like this? You'd have to have a good way of defending this ridge from blink and this area from basic ground attacks like gateway or robo. So we can even end up doing this sort of thing by doing something like moving one unit to here for vision to see if there's a ground attack coming here, and then parking the rest of our units over here. If we have a large enough ground army, we can actually do this, but even then it's kind of hard to pull off because this is a very wide open space. But still, the idea of positioning our units here can solve some of these issues that we have on this ridge. So we're starting to get the sense of where Phoenixes work, where they don't. I will look at one last map as I try not to accidentally close this browser. Let's just pick, actually, if you'd be so kind as to just type one of your favorite maps. That would be thrilling. Yeah. Give me a map, guys. Come on, type a map to me, and we'll analyze the possibility of Phoenix on it. Daybreak. Very simple, nice map to do. Daybreak, StarCraft 2. I was shocked to look up Daybreak and then to see pictures of a sunrise. Who'd have think that Google would return those sort of images? Ugh. I'm a StarCraft player. I've never seen sunrise. Okay, here we go. Let's open up this map, F11. Cool. So I've been talking about Phoenixes from a defensive position, so let's go ahead and do that once again. Let's pretend that we are in the top right spawning position. So here we are in Daybreak, spawning up here. Very nice Phoenix map, because wow, defensively we have this ridge for blink, and literally by parking all our units here, we're covered. Seems excellent. And in fact, we can then start to answer questions about mid and late game, effectiveness, and early game as well. Phoenixes work nicely on this map because the distances are long. We can hold this watchtower, and we can easily see an attack coming. Our Phoenixes can be moving out in the map, and we can see, we can pop into his expansion here. We can even pull back into this space, and we can be lifting things over here. It's overall a very straightforward map to do some Phoenixing play in. I think the most significant reason why Daybreak is good as an offensive map for Phoenix is that if we're doing harassment, and then we see, oh my gosh, he's coming at this watchtower, or we even see, oh my gosh, he's coming at this left watchtower, we have plenty of time to pull our Phoenixes back with the short air distances, while our opponent is trying to do the long ground attack distance that I'm tracing along right now. So this ends up being quite a nice map for this. And in fact, Phoenix plays become increasingly popular in the matchup because it forces our opponent to spend gas on not late game units. In other words, Stalkers are the best response to Phoenixes, but Stalkers cost 50 gas each, so you're going to probably be building around 6 to 8 Stalkers if your opponent is actually making a lot of Phoenixes. And Stalkers are not Colossus or Immortals or Sentries or tech or upgrades. It's everything that you want to be doing right when the early game concludes, which is generally teching up to something cool. You can't do because you're building these Stalkers. That's the real issue that people playing against Phoenix face. So I'm going to now do the final map analysis, the map that we'll be looking at today, Metropolis, StarCraft. We'll get the chance to see a game, a Protoss vs. Protoss on the map Metropolis between Grubby and MC that was played recently at IEM Singapore. And on this map, this is a weird looking map for Phoenix to be good. It requires some slightly counterintuitive logic, but we can end up pulling it off. We see that it looks like there's a large ridge here. Defensively, it looks difficult to go Phoenix. However, we can park our units nearby our ramp. Ordinarily, you'd think right here, where my cursor is, would be the ideal spot. And actually, why not just zoom in so we can see this super clearly? Oh, yeah, maximum zoom. Ha 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 ha. Ordinarily, we'd think, oh, let me just keep my units here. But in fact, if you just keep them skewed down just a little bit, so you can still force field the ramp, and then you have one unit here to spot, then you cover your ramp from basic gateway attacks. And if he blinks up, you can immediately waltz down and engage with your immortals. The big concern, though, is that the early attacks that end up going down on this map before we really have a good number of immortals. Why? Because this ridge is indeed super ridiculously long. So blink attacks are going to be quite effective against us early on. Offensively, Phoenixes are nice because it's a huge distance. Notice how straightforward it is. If a player is here, and then he begins expanding here, and then he wants to expand down here to his third, how much easier it makes it for Phoenixes to be up here and then to dart down and then to take out things in the main and to pop back. Then to easily cut across the center region. If you're going Phoenix, you automatically gain control of these watchtowers, so we have freedom of movement, and this player ends up being constricted back. It's a reasonable choice, has some fragile elements to it, but overall we're pretty happy going for Phoenix on a map like this. So we've just discussed a couple of logics of the Protoss vs. Protoss matchup, in particular the Phoenix logic. But there's an interesting situation that's been arising more and more frequently in the matchup, which is people both opening up Phoenix. Everything gets shattered when this happens. Your normal Protoss vs. Protoss follows along this basic line. We're going to do stuff, and then we're probably going to be focusing on getting Colossus and upgrades in the middle. And by the end, we want Zealot Archon Colossus. Protoss vs. Protoss follows along that very skeletal, simple path pretty much universally. Maybe you can be cute and go for Blink Stalker and force your opponent to be defensive so you can get up an expansion that lets you get more money so you can get more Colossus in the mid-game. Alright, cool. Maybe you open up with an Immortal type play, so that way you can start building the Colossus so you get Colossus up earlier. All of them revolves around that basic idea. But when you start going Phoenix and your opponent's going Phoenix, here's the issue that happens. Neither of you can really stop going Phoenix, because then the other one will just literally kill your Phoenixes so quickly that it is almost as though you flushed a bunch of money down the toilet. And now you're in the super Stone Age. So what do we do then? How do we bounce out? We're going to look at this cool game that happened between MC and Grubby. So MC spawning here on the right, and then Grubby's here on the left. And you know, this is one of these interesting things that pops up with especially off-race players like Zerg and Terran will watch GSL, or we're watching IEM Singapore. There's especially large chatter about this, where people crying in the chat, why isn't he going for this? Why isn't he starting to go more Stalkers? He can just go Blink and do that. We're going to see in this game that that's not really possible. So if me win, I got champion. Can you do too? MC doing all his cute stuff. Tonight, I only care about you, baby, which would ordinarily be sexual in nature, but in reality, Grubby's saying, I hope you lose. So both player going for the gateway. Again, we can position our units here-ish to defend the ramp, and still be able to pop down to deal with a player that goes Blink at this entry point here, and barely there's an entry point right along there, I think. Metropolis, this cliff edge is kind of like slightly changed over time. You can definitely get in up there with Blink. So the first question that people must ask themselves if they want to go Phoenix is, how do I get up enough gas? Obviously, we can just get our assimilator up quite early. Because they're both doing a Phoenix opening, I am going to do the logic from MC's point of view first, and then Grubby's point of view. So MC is going to go for a very early naked gas geyser. And I call it naked because it's not like there's anything that we're transitioning into. It's literally just geyser. This is the reason why MC is scouting so early, because he wants to be able to check if the opponent is going to be building a Zealot. That's pretty significant. So we see the Cybernetics core goes down. MC needs to have an excellent sense of what the opponent is up to. already we're pretty happy. Aha! We see a gas geyser, we see no zealot, we see not a lot of chrono boost. Our opponent is probably not going for a 4-gate. Yes, probably not gateway aggression. Do-do-do-do-do-do-do. So MC's going to do a fairly standard thing, focus on 1 gateway worth of defense. In particular, we can go for the sentry defense. We can go for a stalker defense. But MC chooses the highly defensive sentry. This will allow us to begin building up energy quickly for future stuffs. And also MC is chrono boosting very much on the warp gate. A little bit here just because, again, earlier sentry. This is significant, getting it out a few seconds earlier, so that way this 51 energy sentry will have 100 energy should any attack come too early and surprise us. And then literally just goes straight for the Stargate. Now the question is, should you build this Zealot or should you not build this Zealot? You will have a terrible time against someone who literally goes 1 Zealot, 1 Stalker, go. That is an incredibly difficult thing to deal with. Weirdly enough, it is. So, MC does the reasonable thing, gets a 2nd Zealot up. Players like Crank will build a 2nd Sentry and then go gate, but this is much safer and much easier to do. Much easier to manage. So we still have to worry about some potential of gateway units swinging in towards us. And as a result, we will be building this 2nd gateway. Right away, I need to note how worried we are about Dark Templar possibly coming at us, so we really do need a Robo up quickly. And also we'll need a Robo up quickly to get Immortals. At this point, we don't really want to build any more gateway units. So we're going to start chrono boosting out as many of those Phoenixes as we can. We're comfortable hiding them because we're pretty darn sure that he is not going for an early attack. We're pretty darn sure he's going for some tech play, so what we really want to do is surprise him. This was largely the result of this Probe Scout. So here the Phoenixes go, doop-de-doop-de-doo, doop-a-doop-de-doo, and oh my god, our opponent is going Phoenix. Ah! Unfortunately, nothing has died. So see, we got the chance to look at this build from MC, and we see that it kind of has all the necessary pieces to it. Now, Grubby is actually going to go for Phoenix in an entirely different way. They'll both kind of, again, they're kind of wiggling out in different ways, and they're kind of coming back into the same way, but I like doing this because it shows how you end up dealing with the issues of what are all the attacks that could be coming. And in fact, one thing that's actually pretty significant to note about what MC did, notice that MC actually flew in a straight line path from here right over to here. Literally cross the middle, no problem. Why did he do that? Because what if he saw a bunch of stalkers here in the middle? He needs that knowledge to be able to pull back because MC's own robo... Why can I not choose MC? Yeah. MC's own robotics facility is not even done yet, so he really does need that. And just in case, he's warped in a few extra zealots. So now let's go to the Grubby cam, and let's do the same thing real fast. GG, GL, HF, etc. Alright. I'll note that there's really just 3 attacks in a row. The first attack we're worried about is him attacking us before Warp Gate with 1 Zealot and 2 Stalkers, or 1 Zealot and 1 Stalker. The second one is the Warp Gate Rush, so a 4-gate or 3-gate that happens very, very quickly. And the third is a Blink attack that happens around 8 minutes. Or even a delayed 4-gate that happens around 8 minutes. So there's Grubby getting himself just gas, core, gas. A much more standard, much more slow on the second geyser. And Grubby will get a second gateway. Now remember, we want to be able to defend against those 3 attacks, but we also want to be getting Phoenix as fast as possible. Grubby does a very interesting choice in that he's going for a Stalker as his early push. This Stalker, rather than do the MC style, I'm going to get a sentry, and I'm going to defend attacks by having stronger force field and just more muscle. Grubby is trying to shove back vision and gobble up map control. Likewise, Grubby's popping in here. He sees, oh, okay, it looks like you're probably not going for a early rush, but that's okay. I got all the information I need. He doesn't actually see the sentry. But this is a simple defensive play where, look, again, we have the Zealot Sentry combination. That's the exact thing that MC did, but Grubby's going to use this Stalker to aggressively stop that warping in. So MC went Zealot, Sentry, Zealot. Grubby's going Stalker, Sentry, Hold. And while all that's going on, we have the Stargate coming down. So we have all this scouting around going on, and Grubby has this nice advantage in that he has an easier time holding on to things like watchtowers because he has this one single Stalker. So we can already see that whereas MC spent all this gas on extra sentries, or an extra sentry, Grubby didn't, and also gets his robo facility up a lot earlier. He was actually able to build a lot less on the gateway front, and now he's just building the Phoenixes up. If for some reason Grubby decided to go for the hyper-fast Stargate, Grubby would kind of want to scout into the opponent's base and see what was up. So right now Grubby's doing the smart thing, just building pylons, holding towers. Holding towers is much easier for Grubby to do, again, simply because of this very early Stalker play. And regardless of whether you want to do a Grubby build or an MC build, any build that gets you a very early robo facility in PvP is going to get my vote. I really like this. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Uh-huh. And then, in just a moment, we are going to see... Oh yeah, chrono boosting out 3 of those. But immediately we see MC Phoenixes pop in. Grubby does see them with these various units that are out on the map. So now we know it's Phoenix versus Phoenix. Huh. What to do now? We'll find out in part 2. Ah! This is actually a great breakpoint. We now have done a little bit of analysis on maps where Phoenixes work. We've talked about holding off all the various pushes and rushes. The one thing that I think I didn't note is that this Immortal that's popping out, or this Zealot, these Phoenixes, and this Probe have seen no Stalker movement in the middle of the map in case Blink's coming. We are getting the contingency Immortal to be able to deal with hyper-fast Blink. And if hyper-fast Blink attack is coming, we just chrono this out, build some extra units from here, and we're good. Okay, in part number 2, we're going to take a look into the mid-game and see how difficult it is for either player to actually quit going Phoenixes. And also we see how the Phoenixes will... normally they'll be used for map control, but suddenly play a hyper-defensive role, and we have to kind of play in the dark. But fortunately, we don't need a lot of knowledge to make the correct decision. So let's head into part number 2. I'll be back in about 3 minutes. See you then.